Later on, the newsman would call us the greatest generation. I think we were just answering our country's call in a time of need. And we had an unfortunate accident during an evening training flight out of Boise. We had a fire in the number 4 engine over the right wing, and we just couldn't put it out. And I actually made the newspaper that day, and not in a good way, unfortunately. It said the crash destroyed 3 small planes, 2 automobiles, a hangar, a storage shed, and started a grass fire that burned over 1,000 acres of land. So it was a very unfortunate accident.
David was with the 79th Infantry Division. So he was no stranger to combat. The 79th had come ashore at Normandy on June 14th and took part in the heavy fighting to capture the fortified port of Cherbourg, and battled its way as part of Patton's Third Army across France into Alsace-Lorraine, stopping briefly at Strasbourg.
Paul was 21 years old when war was declared between the United States and Imperial Germany. However, he didn't make it to France with the American Expeditionary Force. On Monday, March 4th, he came down with what probably first appeared to be a case of the flu, a severe cold, and a fever, and by Saturday he was dead. His father lived until 1938. His mother was an early member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. What is very, very sad is he died on March 9th, and his birthday is March 10th.
The marker text says at 10:45 a.m. on February 5th, 1944, First Lieutenant John Beatty of Sandusky, Ohio, and Second Lieutenant Ernest Fanslau of Mantua, New Jersey, took to the air from the Ainsworth Army Airfield in 2 P-47 Thunderbolt fighter planes. So the 2 P-47s crashed into each other. Now there was a rancher nearby named Everett Morris. He did not see the crash, but he heard the crash. So this was a whole change in the procedure and rules for the Army Air Force. Secondly, the Army made modifications to the planes to make it easier for the pilot, if his hood is up, to bail out, because it would be very tricky to get out of the plane if there's an emergency.
He was really young, 25 when he passed away. He was married for about a year. It's a strong military pedigree. Like I said, his father was actually in the Mexican border war. His wife, I think it was from Mount Royal. She was over in Texas with him.
The Germans went on the offensive at a place called Chateau Thierry, which is where the battle was. So as the Germans pushed through, it ultimately ended up in a hand-to-hand combat situation, which unfortunately did not work out in Joseph's favor. So ironically, they did win the battle. He was in the 109th Division, 28th Infantry, and I guess the odds were so against them that they won, that the general came down and was so surprised that he dubbed them all what he called the Iron Men. And apparently today they still have a patch that you get for certain things, which is made after these guys.
He was born here in Wenonah on December 20th, 1924, raised in Wenonah. His parents were William and Rose Manners, and they are buried there. Did his basic training and then went to Europe and ended up fighting in the Battle of the Bulge, which is where he was killed on December 22nd, 1944, just 2 days after his 20th birthday. His mother was an early president of the Women's Club of Wenonah. And since I'm currently the president, I'm connected.
He had a strong interest in chemistry. He would have a little space in a shed in their backyards to do his little experiments in. And from what I gather, he didn't burn anything down, so he must have been pretty good at it there. He was awarded a large bronze medal from the American Legion, a Good Citizenship Award in high school. He worked summers picking vegetables and tomatoes, sometimes at local farms around Paulsboro. He also worked evenings for a local physician, answering the phone for him when he wasn't around for the patients or taking appointments or any messages for him.
Industrious guy, huh?
And in September of '42, he enlisted in the Marines. Dominic, his father, and Pete escorted him down, walked him down to the public service bus stop in Paulsboro to see him off to basic training, and that's the last they saw of him alive.
He was born in Jersey, lived in Clayton until he joined the Marines in 1914. That was the year that World War I started. He was exposed to poison gas, and he suffered the effects of the shell shock from the bombardments. He came back in 1919 and moved to Mantua, where he lived. He eventually was succumbed to the damage to his nervous system from the poison gas and from the shell shock. When he came back, he was greeted with a warm welcome. They had a parade for him in Woodbury, where he held a silk banner with 13 stars on it that represented other people that had died in World War I from the area. And his father had this made, had the statue made in 1927.
Navy Lieutenant J.G., and he returned home and he died in 1950. So he survived the war, but young Bill didn't. It's a commemoration monument for him, but he is actually buried. His remains are in the Brittany Cemetery in France.
That basically, when they died there, they pretty much stayed there.
Pretty much stayed there, yeah, because there were so many deaths there.
Rows of crosses of people that, the amount of soldiers that died was amazing.
We in the American Legion Post, though, are rather proud to be a member of the Post, which is, of course, named for Arthur J. Holton. So after he graduated from the Wenonah Military Academy, he went to med school in California and received his doctorate. And it was his MD that got him the commission as a first lieutenant in the Army. But his name lives on as on our post, Post 192 of the American Legion, Arthur J. Holton Post.
So although he's a qualified paratrooper, when he got to Vietnam, he was assigned to the 1st Air Cavalry. That's an air mobile division. So like it or not, he had joined what would become the Army's most decorated division in the Vietnam War. On May 6, 1966, Alpha Company made a full-scale combat assault on Tan Son 2. This was a heavily fortified encampment of the NVA's 9th Battalion. Buddy was one of 9 killed in action and 4 wounded out of the 3rd Platoon. Buddy was awarded the Combat Infantry Badge, the Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart, 2 Vietnam Campaign Medals, and the Gallantry Cross from the Republic of South Vietnam. So whatever your thoughts might be on the war in Vietnam or the people that served, Buddy Powell was a 19-year-old hero who fought and died in combat serving his country.